All right, Dana, it is so good to have you with me here today. I've been following you on social media for a few years now. I was a member of the Nurture to Convert Society. But I think what I love the most about you over the past few years, because I, of course, follow on Instagram and Facebook, is your authenticity about being a mom and having a business all at the same time. And I know that you talk about that. I think it's probably the intro or outro to your podcast as well, too, right? But, being a business owner and a mom, and I'm a mom to three kids, it's so hard to do the balancing act of, especially when you're working from home. We were talking about earlier, it's like, okay, how much work do I do today versus how much time do I give to them? And I've got client work that I've got to get to. It is so tricky because, of course, doing both can be so hard. So this conversation just lights up my heart. And I'm so glad that you took the time to talk with me today, because I know that you're going to inspire so many others as well, too.
Oh, thanks for having me. And yes, mom's got a bum rap as well.
Oh my God.
Totally. Yeah, because you're not even just dealing with time management, you're dealing with identity management. Like I was a completely formed human being and now I'm a mom. Like, so what's most important to me? And I should care about their future, but I also would like my own future. And oh, wow, now I'm a spouse and I'm supposed to also be a wife and a mother and a woman. And you have all these things. And what's valuable? Because I used to make a lot of money, but now is it raising kids worth some kind of money? And you're like, all these things. And you just have these identity crises. You have like priority crisis, you have time management crisis, you have energy crisis, and all along that time, you have to figure out how to shave your legs and not go crazy during menopause. I'm like, we did not get the easy end of the stick.
Yeah,
If you ask my opinion.
Yeah, it was so funny. I was talking to a good girlfriend the other day who she's had four kids, I think, and she owns a salon here in the North Dallas area. And she texted me the other day. She was like, "Hey, I need to move your appointment. I forgot to do it the last time because I'm getting a boob lift and a tummy tuck. I'm just getting it all done." She's a gorgeous girl, and I was like, "Hey, whatever floats your boat." And she goes, "You know what? Any mama that has had at least one or two children, the whole tummy tuck boob lift should be a part of the deal. Like it just because like your body is not your own. Everything is not everything changes. And the whole
Yes.
identity crisis. Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. It's part of the deal too. It's everything that we've got to manage. But I like to kick things off talking about personality. I mean, speaking of managing all of the things and having to work through it all. I preach and teach about the DISC profile a lot. It's a personality assessment tool that allows people to see what type of communication style that they are. How are they going to best resonate with their perfect client? How are they going to best resonate with the people in their community, whether it's the people in their house or whatever? But it's just, what's your best communication style? And it's interesting on the DISC, the D stands for dominant. And so those are going to be results oriented, very fast paced, decisive type people. Your I's are the influencers, are pretty enthusiastic, intuitive, and that kind of thing. Your S's, what they call the steady relator. So those are the people who are going to be very nurturing and collaborative in nature. They want everything to be peaceful. And then the C type are what they're called the conscientious type. So very thorough. They love the details, give them a billion spreadsheets and they're happy and good to go. Yeah. And, it's so funny. I've listened to your podcast long enough to feel like you're probably an I, that influencer, energetic.
I'm a high I, then next D, and then the other two are really low.
Yeah, I'm the same way. So D, I am very decisive. Like I can make decisions pretty quick and on the fly. That I'm curious. So you're an ID combo. Okay. When did you take the DISC? Tell me about it. And do you feel like it's a really good descriptor of who you are?
That's so interesting. So the DISC is not my, it's so funny because each person kind of finds their personality. I use the 16 personalities, which is based off the Myers-Briggs. I like that one. Yeah. But my best friend uses the DISC. So he made me take it maybe a year or two ago.
Yeah.
Because I am super decisive, but that's not how I prefer to make decisions. I prefer to inspire and motivate. I'm very empathetic. I'm very intuitive. I'd much rather go with my gut than go with numbers whereas he's a super high D and he could never talk to another human being and make every decision in his life. And to me, human beings are the way I make decisions. So
Yeah.
we find our decisive, we're both decisive about things, but mine is based off conversations and his is
Yes.
based off analytics.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so fascinating. My husband's a CPA. And so he is very decisive, but he needs lots of data points
Mm-hmm.
in order for him to make those decisions. But I am so much let me talk to my people. Let me find out what
Yeah.
other people are doing. I'm
Yeah. How am I feeling about it? How do I,
yeah.
what would my energy, like, am I enjoying, like, is that gut? Yeah, I'm a big gut feeler. Yeah. And in the personality types, like for the physics personalities that I'll use, there's also like a Gretchen Rubin has one that a lot of people use, or there's a bunch of different ones.
Oh, there's
I
tons.
find that they're always spot on.
They
They're spot
are.
on because we're really not very unique creatures. Like there's a book called Predictable Irrationality, and we
Mhm.
are predictably irrational. We predictably deal with situations the same way. So it's like what I generally tell people is I tell them that like the things that are really beautiful and positive about you are so unique and lovely, and all of your problems or challenges, there's nothing unique about them.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
you
Couldn't
know what I
agree
mean?
more.
Like we all have the same problems, we all have the same
Yes.
challenges. It's just some different mix of what is hard for each of us.
Yeah.
And I like the personality test because when we deal with challenges, like our brain wants a formula to make sense of it, right?
Oh,
So either we feel overwhelmed and we spiral into the abyss of uncertainty, or somebody gives us a formula to explain why we feel that way, and then we stop worrying about it as much and we can get back into action. So if there's
yeah.
something that explains the reason for why you are the way you are, it
Yeah.
allows you to not feel like you're the problem, because a lot of people have that same makeup of why they're the way they are,
Absolutely.
and it allows you to move back into action. So I think it's really useful, not just because it is true and it's helpful for us to know how we work, things that we do well, things we don't do well, but also because it gives us a tethering
Mhm.
to personality and who we are that allows us to be freed to
Oh,
try
yeah.
and do other things, because now we
Yeah.
have a logical explanation about why that failed for us or why we
Yeah.
acted that way. And we need that. Like as human beings, we need the tethering. Otherwise, we just spiral
Flounder.
off into,
Yes.
yeah, into like guilt and uncertainty and all those things, and then we shut down and we stop communicating, and then we start lying to ourselves, and you end up crying on the bathroom floor with the kids knocking. It's never ends well.
And all of these different personality. What I've done the Enneagram with Tracy
Oh yeah.
O'Malley,
Mm-hmm.
and I think all of it is just so fascinating because once you have a high level of self awareness about who you are and what you're willing to accept in your life or not accept, or how you're going to best communicate with whomever, it just makes everything a little bit easier because, like you said, you're grounded. You're grounded to it, and it's like once we have rational thought and we're not in this amygdala state anymore, everything becomes just, we can breathe easier. And
Yeah.
I find it so helpful. But anyway, so I'm curious, this might be a really good segue into, with your personality and starting Boss Mom and seeing a need for that. Talk to me about how that even started in the first place. What need did you see in the marketplace, or what did you need personally that got you down that path?
Yeah. So I quit my job. Gosh, what was it, like 2012, I quit. And when I was going to start my own consulting business, and everybody took me out for tequila and I got pregnant. So basically I joke that I quit I became a boss and I became a mom all in the same 24 hours. So a true
Oh
boss mom.
Lord. Yeah.
Um, and I realized I did not want to be a stay-at-home mom, which I felt very guilty about. I wanted my son to nap so I could work. Like I enjoy work. I enjoy solving problems. And I thought I was going to do leadership training. And then I thought I was going to do mindful, coaching, communication coaching, and things like that. Within a few months, I was in Columbus. We moved back to California, or out to California, where I'm originally from, because my parents were here. So I could be close to my parents. Not a hard sell, by the way. It was like -11
Yeah.
in Columbus, Ohio. And
I'll
and my
go.
my
Yeah.
husband at the time was he's like, okay, I'll quit my job tomorrow and we can move to San Diego. But when
Yeah.
I got here, there were all these women that had babies and had businesses. That was not the place in Columbus. Like everybody had a job.
Mhm.
And so I started going to network events, and I ended up at Hal Elrod's event.
Okay.
He does the Savers. What is it? The Miracle Morning, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, and he's awesome, and I've been friends with him for years now, and just an amazing guy. And I got invited, like somebody gave me an extra ticket or something like that. So I went and ended up meeting a group of people. And one of them, Azul Tronis, was a book coach, and we all started a mastermind together, just like we decided to be in a mastermind.
Yeah,
And he said, hey, if anybody wants to write a book, then I'll help you. And I was a journalism major. My parents are published. Like I always wanted to write something.
sure.
I thought I was going to write a book called Expand Your Reach, which is the name of my company at the time. And it was all about, marketing, like helping you build a course, helping you message, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it turns out that when I sat down to write that book, and he actually made me go through the really awkward version of mind mapping that is required. I always joke that if you're mind mapping and it's not uncomfortable, then you're just brainstorming, and those are two different things. That's like so really uncomfortable. And what came out was a lot of the mom stuff. And so what
Interesting.
I ended up writing was Boss Mom,
Okay.
because what I cared more about, it turns out, what I was more passionate about was talking about how hard it is to do both emotionally, mentally, time wise,
Yeah.
as opposed to just the social, the marketing side, which I still teach. That's the thing. Like what we do is we teach sales and marketing we
Right.
say it's to women who don't want to be the best kept secret. It's the woman who wakes up in the morning and goes, if I feel like the only way to be successful is to be the loudest one in the room, but that doesn't fit with my personality. So, like
Mhm.
all the other training in the world for moms that tells you, you just have to be on TikTok dancing 10 times a day, and you just have to,
No.
be in somebody's DMs and
No.
bothering them all the
Oh
time. And some
God.
people are built that way. My audience is not. My audience is
No.
like, I swear I'm really good at this thing I'm good at. And
Yeah.
if you tell me that all I have to flail around and wave my arms is the only way to get attention, I will never succeed, because I'm just not willing,
Yeah.
nor do I have the energy to do that.
Well,
So
and that's what attracted me to you too in the first place. Is I was like, because I did all the research, the pandemic happened and I was trying to figure out how am I going to, stay alive in this online presence, have an online presence because I did professional consulting too. And I was looking at all these different, consultants out there who had these different programs. I was like, none of this feels like me. Like absolutely none of it felt like me, but
Mhm.
yours did, So anyway, I just have to give you props for that. It just, yeah. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah, no, and I completely agree, because we've come into the space of like the lifestyle influencer, right?
Mhm.
It's the lifestyle entrepreneur. It's centered around you. It's centered around your life. It's centered around, and of course, other people want the life you live, right? But a lot of us have, like, a lot of people, like kids these days are like, I want to be an Instagram influencer. I want to be a TikTok influencer, but they're not
YouTuber.
solving a problem. They're not, I mean, the whole, if the crypto crash and stuff we're going through right now is
Mhm.
based around the fact that most of the projects based in crypto don't actually have inherent value. They're not solving a problem. It's like
Right.
the dot-com boom. It just became popular, and
Yeah.
then it weeded out all the people who had started stuff but don't actually do anything of value. And the companies that do something of value, their crypto will, like, it'll come back and it'll be fine. And it's the same thing. It's like we wake up, right? And we've got a bunch of other priorities. We've got kids and all these things going on, and we wake up and we go, I don't like it. My career isn't to be visible,
Yeah.
right? I want to build a business where I am known, where I am indispensable to a loyal set of followers, that helps me have a sustainable business that feels legitimate, that I can look at my husband or my partner and look at my children, and I am proud to brag about what I've built, not
Yeah.
embarrassed. And a
Yes.
lot of times social media makes us feel like you have to embarrass yourself in order to, you have to share private stuff you don't want other people to know,
Yeah.
right? And you look at your family and you go, I spent more money than I've made. And so you feel, like you have to figure out how to actually, because everybody wants you to buy something.
Of course.
It's
A
hard.
lot of
Yeah. It's like,
money.
oh my gosh. Yeah. It's a hard thing to do. And so like me finding this intersection of going, I have a lot of guy clients. Like I can, in what I do, I could help anybody in sales and marketing, but I have a passion for moms because, like we said in the beginning, they got the crappy end of the stick. And they wake, and we have too many amazing, brilliant women waking up in the morning wondering if they're valuable,
Oh
And
yeah.
I can't handle it. Like, and having your own business, having some success, even having clarity, even getting, you need an appreciation loop, because our kids are really crappy at telling us how much they love us, especially the older they get.
Yes.
Right. Our partners are even crappy at doing that, because there's so much in your conversation that is logistical about, like,
Yes.
summer, where's
Yes.
everybody? You got more than one kid. And
Yeah.
it's like, your entire life conversation is about where you're taking people and when you're picking them up.
I know. Yeah.
It's
I'm
a whole
getting
thing.
text messages
Yeah. What
right
are we going
now
to eat?
about
What are we
that.
going to, yeah. It's like, oh my gosh. And so, like, I tell people that my mission, like, I help moms with sales and marketing, but my mission is for moms to wake up in the morning and know how valuable and how valued they are, and
Yeah.
that they're an important person in this world, and that
Yeah.
somebody is making them feel that way through their accomplishments, through the communities that they are part of or that they
Yeah.
built, so that they're not reliant on their family to give them that, because sometimes your family loves you more than anything but doesn't make you feel that way.
Oh, 100%.
And
Yeah.
it's got to be something that we are conscious of, because we
Yeah.
don't have community in this world like we used to. Like, it's
Right.
just a different thing.
Oh, it is. And, speaking of value, it's so interesting because, again, I work mostly with professional services people. So accountants, lawyers, doctors, medical professionals, that kind of thing. And so we put so much value on money. Like, you're going to show how valuable you are based on how much money you're bringing in.
Mm-hmm.
And your first year of business, okay. I mean, first year business for me was in the middle of a pandemic. And it's like, that value
Totally.
was not so great at the time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so the value, and it's so funny, I'm married to an accountant as well too. And so he's just like, okay, so are people pushing the buy button? Where's the buy button? I mean, how many sales? What have you brought in? And it's just like, oh my God, it takes time to build, and the value, I had to really train myself because of course I came from a different world, and the value did come from how big your paycheck was, right? And you're having to flip that narrative a little bit. And that is so stinking hard to do when now you're at home and have kids, and the value isn't coming in as quickly as you would, or the money, I guess, because it's funny how we associate value with money. We do. And so I
Totally.
love, there's value outside of money. There just is. How many lives are you helping to change? How many people can you sit down with and, say something that will change their life and that kind of thing? I mean, I've had to learn how to teach myself that as well too, because
Yeah.
it's a hard lesson to learn.
It is. And the challenge is, when we had jobs or careers or whatever it is, you're multiple degrees of separation away, usually, from someone paying money and then you having to ensure that value.
Right.
Right. And so when you start owning your own business and you start selling something, and most of us are selling digital products, our
Right.
time, our expertise, or something like that. There are products and things like that. But it feels so personal. Like, in your career, you're able to separate that personalness.
Yeah.
And when you become you're owning your own business, the result you get somebody feels so much more personal. The no, when someone doesn't hire you, feels so much more personal. That opt-in that failed, that launch that only got you half the clients you wanted, that whatever it was, you join a mastermind and you're the one person in there that didn't make whatever everybody else did. It's
Yeah.
all so personal. And we are already having these identity crises. And then throw on top of that the fact that you're saying, maybe it's me, maybe I'm the problem because these things aren't working. Or it's like, you have so much that we take personally. There's a book called the oh gosh, what is it called? The Art of Possibility.
Okay.
Really good. It's a husband and wife. The husband is a conductor and the wife is a psychiatrist.
Okay.
And they did this together. It's really, the audio version is great because they play some of the music from his orchestra and they kind of go back and forth. So good. But they talk about this story, and someone comes into a meeting, because they do have these really big clients, and somebody comes into this meeting and yells at everybody about this thing they're mad at. And this guy leans forward, who's obviously running the meeting. And he just goes, "Remember rule number 6?" And they go, "Yeah, okay, you're right." And they sat down. And at the end of the meeting, the guy that was in there visiting, he's like, "What the heck is rule number 6? That was amazing." And he said, "Stop taking yourself so damn seriously. That's what rule number 6 is." And he's like, "What are the other 5 rules?" And he's like, "Oh, there aren't any." It's just rule number 6. There's no other 5 rules. They just decided it's rule number 6, which is part of the don't take yourself so seriously. Like it confirms, but that idea of like, that's what we do is we take everything, every result that happens, everything we make that fails, everything so personal, so seriously. When you realize all business is a series of tests until one works. And then the smart entrepreneurs put on the gas and fan the flame when something works, but they still only have the 20% that works. They still dealt with the 80% that failed. They just don't worry about it as much. It's like, stop taking ourselves so seriously, but also tell yourself that on a day-to-day basis and see if it works. Right.
Oh yeah.
When you've got so much going on, just be like, don't take yourself so seriously. And they're like, yeah, it's easier said than done.
It is easier said than done. And I do think that some of it just takes time. Like you just have to give yourself grace and ease into it. Do all the things. Now I am big on, it's like, you've got to take action. If you want to see results, the action has to come first. Right. And so, wanting the results, but not putting in the action, nothing's going to happen with that. But you do have to give yourself grace to figure out, okay, which thing is going to work? Which thing is not going to work, and is it the messaging? Is it is it something else? Like what is not working? This is a really good segue into my next question that I have for you. It's so interesting for me to see that no matter what type of business that you have, whether it's building a community to support you is absolutely imperative. I mentioned earlier, I work primarily with female professional business owners. And even though someone might be a professional services provider, I think the stigma is definitely still a little traditional in nature. Like you go to the chamber events, you meet people for coffee, we're talking about meeting people for lunch and that kind of thing, network at the country club, whatever your shtick is, right? The professionals I serve require the same level of community as an online entrepreneur does as well too. I didn't even know about masterminds and, online networking groups. I had no clue that existed just 3 years ago. Like Dana, I just started my business 2.5 years ago, actually. Had no clue that some of this stuff actually existed. And I kind of found it by accident, just by Googling and going, okay, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. I need help. Who can help me? That kind of thing. But, I'll say that the professionals that I serve, especially during COVID and after COVID, have had to pivot to develop that online community to ensure that they were staying in front of their audience and potential clients. They had to because there was nothing else, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about what you saw during the pandemic when it came to building community and if or how it's continued to be a critical part of building any type of business. Because I know that you work with people, not just online entrepreneurs as well. So how do you foresee building that online community in the future working for business owners?
Yeah. Okay. So I will say that, so it depends on where your ideal client hangs out, right? Yes. I still think Facebook is does the best job of facilitating community building in the way that it actually helps you grow it. So there aren't any other platforms that will help you grow your community. If you're doing well, the algorithm feeds you members. Right. LinkedIn has never been good at that. They tried it. It's always sucked, but there are things emerging like Mighty Networks. Discord is going to be for people more from the YouTube space, like comedians, actors, things like that, as well as the crypto space all does Discord. So there are emerging new good community-based systems. And I think we'll have more of those because we see the power of it. Yeah. One of the biggest things that especially in the pandemic, because with all the kids and everybody getting sent home, people getting furloughed, like all that kind of stuff, our time was limited, right? So before, when you're like, I've got 8 hours a day, I was always told, like, be careful how long you make your meetings because you will use the time you have, right? So be careful about that. Well, we stopped having time, right? We stopped having, as entrepreneurs, we stopped having that time in that space. Yeah. And so you found that a lot of people where they were driving they were driving everything themselves, had a really hard time because the benefit of community is everybody rises together, right? Imagine an old school community where you have to build a house. You build it alone, it takes a year. The community comes together, it's built in a weekend, right? Right. You fall sick, someone's helping watch your kids. Like there's the community. The benefit of community does two big, huge things. Number one, creates a sense of belonging. So we stop feeling so alone and broken. Yeah. And number two is it stops putting so much pressure on you to be the center. And we talk about, everybody has kids, consciousness and maturity, like maturity is based around the idea of consciousness, and consciousness is the recognition of the world outside self, right? So kids are super selfish, not because they mean to be, sorry, I'm super stuffy, but because they don't know any better. They don't know how to see the ripple effect. They don't understand consequences. They haven't lived enough to experience those things to know what that's like. When we become mature, when we become conscious, right, we start to recognize how the world is affected around us.
Yeah.
And when we're building community, what we start to see is that it is actually more sustainable for you to not be the center of your own universe, right? It is actually more beneficial to give and receive openly, to create a sense of belonging, to create a sense of safety and security for people that they yearn so much for. And we often think, because we don't interact with a lot of people, like in the pandemic, you just kind of forget that everybody else is existing and you assume they've got it figured out. You're the only one that's in massive failure mode or hot mess or whatever it is. And we stop realizing that everybody is in the same boat, like everybody's feeling the same way. So I do think that the pandemic had everybody in this siloed space for about 6 months, right? Where we were just like going, I'm sorry, you tell my kids are going to be home all the time? Like, I'm sorry. You said, wait, you want them to you want my 6-year-old to log in and sit in front of a computer for 4 hours? I'm sorry. We don't seem to understand how children, did you get I mean, maybe your kids are older, but we got the thing that for us, because I've got like a first and second grader, and it was class for 15 minutes, break, class for 20 minutes, snack. And I was like, I'm sorry, I have to do stuff today, right?
Yes. Oh,
like, what is this? Every 15 minutes, my child gets a snack. Like, this is not going to work for anybody. Yeah. So we all fly. But then after that, we started getting sick of each other in our household. I think that's one of the biggest drivers, which is you started realizing you have to actually hang out with the people that you live with. And that's actually really hard to see the people that you're with all the time, even when you love them dearly. You're like, I need an escape. So it drove people into communities. The people that were already doing things on their own were like, I don't have time. This is unsustainable. So they started creating communities because they needed the help, right? And it works great because if you do it right, then the community is sustainable on its own, right? That's it. When you see somebody grow a really big Facebook group or really big community and then they shut it down, that's because they made themselves the center. And when they got overwhelmed, it didn't work. Like when I'm not available and I'm not hanging out in my group, like my dad passed away a couple of years ago and I was out for several months, the group continued to grow and work and function. Nobody said, like some people maybe said, where's Dana? We miss her.
Sure.
But nobody ever said this community is crumbling because Dana doesn't exist. But it's really hard for people that are smart, the expert, the CEO, the consultant, to say, I want to build a system where I'm unnecessary. Where I'm simply a part of the community, the leader, the facilitator of the community, but I'm not the center of the community. It takes a lot of humility to do that. And it's really hard for people. When you do it right, people are loyal to you till the end. Like they will fight for you in really amazing ways, as opposed to the people where you're the center. It all crumbles when you're not there. And then they move on to the next person. Like it really does make a difference.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And the impact of that is huge because, it's so funny. I tell my kids and close friends, I'm like, you're the star of your own movie. Like nobody is watching as closely as you are. I can assure you, even some of the big superstars and everybody else out there that's doing big, big things, they're really the star of their own movie because we all go home and do what we need to do and keep our kids alive, which that can be hard to do from time to time, right? But it's like, you're the star of your own movie. So the biggest impact that I feel like you can make is removing yourself from being the star and allowing the group to build upon itself and impact and help each other, which you have done a beautiful job of doing. So
thanks.
I love it.
Well, and it goes, by the way, it goes back to that idea that I want to make sure people feel valuable and valued. That's what community is. It's taking you out of the center, the one that has all the answers, the one that makes all the decisions, and it allows people within your community to rise up and be helpful.
Yes.
It's just like with your kids, like stop doing stuff for your kids.
Right.
Like your kids may complain about it, but they yearn to be useful. We
Oh, yes.
all yearn as human beings to be useful. When you make somebody, that's like why getting old, and it's like, oh, let me get that for you. Like getting old doesn't mean I want to stop being useful.
Right.
I
Oh,
get that you want to
absolutely.
protect me, but you're not protecting me by
Yes.
stripping away my value. And
Right.
so you have to recognize that a community is about allowing other people to be valuable. And when you
Yeah.
do that, you have such a strong bond, and that's
Yeah.
amazing. But that means you can't have all the answers. Your
Right.
community has to help with the answers and provide for each other. And but when you allow that to happen, it's magical.
Okay, so I'm curious, what would you say that if you were to tell me what your top two or three core values are, what's super important to you in your world, what would you say that those are? And have those evolved over the past 10 years that you've had Boss Mom?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably not much. Okay. I mean, as far as core value, which values is always a funny word. I used to do a lot of back in corporate, we do a lot of focus groups. And that
Yes.
would be one of the ones in companies you try to figure out value and they don't know. They don't know what it is. Right. So
Right.
but I would say the big values that I have are um empathy, right? Compassion, empathy, depending on the situation. The second one would be curiosity,
Mhm.
right? Which is why I love testing and everything is about testing and tweaking. Curiosity implies it's not about the end result, it's about the journey.
Yeah.
Um, so those two things. And I don't know that it's a value, but it's what I live by, which is positive intent, right? Which means my natural assumption is that whoever is in my life is simply bumping into me accidentally, not
Yeah.
maliciously,
Yeah.
right? Because most of the time we think everybody's watching us, out to get us, judging us, caring, and most of the time nobody notices we exist. You're like, I'm sorry, nobody noticed that you had a bad hair day. They were
Yeah.
very focused on themselves.
I know.
They didn't even notice you in the grocery store walking around in your sweatpants, believe me.
Star of your
And
own movie.
yeah, exactly. So that one, the positive intent was really important to me because again, it takes me out of the center. It says like nobody cared about that thing. Like, and no, they didn't cut me off because they were trying to cut me off. They probably got in a fight or they're late for their daughter's recital or,
Right.
whatever it is that that they're into. So the
Yeah.
positive intent, curiosity is really important. And then the empathy, which is I think we tend to live by our experiences, right?
Mhm.
Rightfully so. We live by our own experiences. And I think it's really important to recognize like I'm the person that constantly says like I'm super stuffy right now, right? And I've got bad eye allergies. It's just been a bad allergy season. And I was at lunch yesterday and my left eye is just watering. I'm like I just keep dabbing it. And she's like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for you. Like, this is such a crappy situation. And I was like, are you kidding? It's like 2 o'clock. I'm having a glass of wine, looking at the ocean in Del Mar with a friend, because I own my own business and I can do that and afford daycare, for my kid, like camp for my
Life is
kids
good.
and all those things. I was like, you think a little eye watering? Like
Yeah.
some people have to take the bus to 3 different jobs and they've got 6 generations in their house and they, like there's so much that I know that I'm always trying to find a way not to be grateful because I have kids and not to be grateful for things that, of course, we're going to be grateful for, even though half the time we feel stressed out by them.
Yeah.
I'm talking about being grateful for, like, I try and remind myself, like, I got hit by a car when I was a kid and I can still walk and I didn't break, and like I'm a normal human being. In fact, because of the fused like vertebrae in my neck, I have to stay fit. So I'm literally fit at over 40 because I got in a car accident. Like that's a good silver lining. And there are a
Right.
lot of people
Right.
that don't walk away from accidents like the one I got into and things like that. So I'm constant like that is a value of mine, which is somebody has it worse than you.
Oh,
Like somebody has it worse than you.
yeah.
Like sit there for a moment and the thing you're complaining about, you still have every right to complain about it. You don't
Yeah.
get to complain about that stub toe. Like it's like you don't get to not complain about the stub toe because someone else has cancer. Like those two things are separate. But you
Right.
do need to recognize that you have really wonderful things in your life. And if you
Yeah.
don't have the things that you want in your life, then you have the opportunity to go get them. Like,
Yeah.
and I want to remind myself because then it does allow you to be curious, playful, deal with failure, recognize people aren't trying to out to get you,
Yeah.
and that you have it pretty good. And there's always something you can find to be helpful for. And those things, I don't know if those are all values, but those are
Yeah.
all things that like help me lead I think say maybe a life of integrity. Like I'd like to think that the people that know me personally and that know me online but don't really know me, that it's still the same person.
Oh, and you can see it. I mean, I can feel it. And when I listen to your podcast, I mean, it feels the same. It does. It really does. You know, it's so funny. What you just said just made me think of a story. I remember I played piano when I was a kid, super competitively, went to college on a full ride piano scholarship, all the things. And my dad would take me to, when I was a sophomore, junior in high school, would take me to my piano competitions that I'd go to. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was one competition and I thought I was a real badass on the piano. Like, and I mean, I could play. I don't play as much now. Well, I don't play hardly at all anymore, but nevertheless, I lost this competition. Like there was a guy who beat me out. And I was really mad at myself. And then of course, you know, I was only 15 years old, maybe. And I was like, you know, I started telling my dad, I was like, God, you know, he's not as good at this that I am. And, you know, doing this compare game, right? Mm-hmm. My dad pulled over on the side of the road, like we're on a major highway, I-40, and pulled over on the side of the road, stopped the car, put the car in park. And he goes, I'm going to tell you something. There will always be someone who is better than you. There will always be someone that you can learn from. And if you don't think that that's the case now, you're going to have a really hard road ahead of you. You know, if you don't start thinking about that now, you know, and it's smack between the eyes. I mean, because he's like the guy that I adore. And he's telling me, you're really not as great as you think that you are. You're really good, but there's always room to learn. There's always room for improvement. And the minute that you stop thinking that is the minute that things get really different in your life, and probably not in a good way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Like I tell people that, like in paid programs, in communities, you always want someone behind you, someone next to you, and someone in front of you. So someone behind you that looks up to you, so you have that appreciation loop. Somebody next to you that is in a similar place, but has a different perspective, so you don't get stuck in your box of thinking. Right. And then someone ahead of you that you can aspire to. And I find that a lot of people will join a lot of like mastermind programs before they really build something. And then they don't have an appreciation loop. So what they do is all they see is what they're not yet. But they don't have somebody telling them they're awesome. So it's like, right. Well, we need to get you a client. We need to get you somebody that looks up to you. And then we have to have that person next to us that goes, but what if it's different? What if you cut it in half? Like, would you tell your client to do that? You know, like, but I feel like, what if you sold it this different way? Or what if we flipped it around, you know, for you to go, oh, I didn't even see it that way. But it's like, you have to have those three. That's why I love having a podcast, because I get to have those conversations. I get a lot of proximity conversations. I get a lot of people ahead of me in a completely different space conversations. My paid programs give me a lot of the people who look up to me, you know, and want to learn from me. So when I'm feeling down and then I get that email that is like, oh my gosh, you know, this is exactly what I need to hear today. Like, you changed my life, or, you know, this is the permission I needed. I felt so down, and, you know, and you've made my day better. Like, then I'm like, oh, okay.
I'm okay. I
needed that because I just talked to 5 people who have more money than me and have been doing it for less time. And I'm like, oh, I needed somebody to tell me I'm special just right now. That was very helpful.
You know, external validation, it actually is a real legitimate thing, and we need it from time to time. We just do, you know? So anyway, okay. I want to wrap up our chat by flipping the narrative just a bit. You always ask your podcast guests, what are the 3 things that have made you happy today? Yes. So what are your 3 things? I have to ask.
Okay. Number 1, there's a garage sale at my mom's, like in her neighborhood. And somehow we acquired a betta fish for $1. And then I spent $70 housing the betta fish. So just whenever you pick up a fish for $1, it's always going to cost more. But we named him Jeffrey. And of course, I'm pretty much the one that's doing all the things. That's not what's making me happy, though. What's making me happy is you have to clean a fish tank. And I'm allergic to everything, so we can't have pets. You have to clean a fish tank. And I just found online like a tank vacuum. So that I do not have to take all the water out or the fish out. It like allows me to vacuum the and I love things that allow me to not waste my time doing things I don't want to do.
Absolutely.
Like a fish tank. So the tank vacuum is like You'd be so happy.
Note to self, fish
And
vacuum.
the power of Google, because I just said how to make cleaning a fish tank faster, like easier and faster. And it came up with fish tank. So that's number one.
That's awesome.
Number two is we're just about to end June gloom. So June in San Diego is actually really gloomy usually. A lot of overcast, stuff like that. And so we're starting to get into the warm days where we go to the pool, those kinds of things. And that's making me really happy because it's May, gray, and June gloom. So May and June are actually not the best months to be in San Diego. If you're a San Diegan, it's probably lovely for everybody else. But so that's number two. And then number three is I love going to the movie theater, and AMC has a subscription. So I literally have a subscription that I just pay every month, and I get to go to the movies for free. And my kids are at an age where they like to go with me. So we went and saw the Jurassic Park movie. We went and saw Buzz Lightyear on Friday. We're gonna go. So I love it because it's this little adventure that we get to have together. And that's like one of the things when I grew up, you go and you nestle in and you have your popcorn and that kind of thing. So now that they're 7 and 9, we can do that. We can go to movies, and seeing their personalities come out and be playful in that space is really fun. So those would be, many things make me happy, but those are the three that come to mind.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Have you seen Top Gun?
Oh yeah, I saw that. Not with the kids, but totally. So good.
So good. It was so good. Okay. And finally, where can people find you online to learn more about Boss Mom and anything new happening in your business that you'd like to share?
Yeah. Okay. So boss-mom.com is the place to the email on autopilot toolkit, which helps you basically understand how to build your opt-in once people get in, how to email them with the nurture system, all that kind of stuff. So that's great. Exciting thing that's coming up is in September, the last 3 weeks of September. So it'll launch on Labor Day, which I call the Boss Mom New Year, because kids go back to school and we actually get back into our business. We are going to do our very first Boss Mom virtual retreat. So we used to do live events that we don't do anymore. So it's our first virtual retreat. And it's going to be a pop-up Facebook group 3 weeks long, and it's going to actually be a retreat. So we're calling it a deconstructed summit. It's like nothing anybody else has had. You know me, I like to do things a very specific way that is designed for moms to not be overwhelming. I'm really pumped about it. So we've been taking applications for our experts that are all in society members. And we have a whole structure. We've been actually planning it since January.
Oh my gosh.
And it'll be coming out in the next, at the end of June, to be able to reserve your spot. And it's a free event, and I'm very excited about it. So we're going to start doing one every year.
Oh, wow. Will you do an in-person event at some point in the future?
You know what? I don't know that I'll ever do one of the big, it's like planning a wedding events again. But we will start doing more intimate masterminds where we rent out a house, everybody comes in. It's probably no more than 12 to 15 people. We've done some of those and had there's a lot of really good intentional work. So we'll probably start doing those again next year. But also just being cognizant of where the money comes from and the age of my kids and things like that. I do find that, evergreen is the way to go, building upon systems. And I just had a podcast episode that came out, I think on my birthday, in May, about our 5-year plan, what's on my vision board. And I have other things that I want to start and build. Next year, we're planning on building, fingers crossed, if the timing works out, an actual Boss Mom app.
Very cool.
It's actually a scheduling, a planner and a scheduler and a productivity app, but it's designed specifically for moms. So I have very specific ways about how you're managing your time, and also how you're managing when your time has to move and shift that no other apps do. So it's those are some of the things I want to do. We've got to revamp the Boss Mom book because it's old. It's 6 years old and it doesn't have any of the nurture to convert stuff in it. We have to do that. And then I have a whole nonprofit that I want to start in the next 5 years that shifts the way our kids learn and are mentored, and shifts the necessity for college. And I got a whole bunch of things. So when I think about that, and I think about how time consuming it is to plan an in-person event, I find that just gets pushed off because it's so much more impactful for me to do other things. And I start looking at the volume of the impact versus the time in, it's the effort in. The
impact. It is 100%. 100% on that. Well, you have a ton going on. I can't wait to see it unfold over the next few months, few years for that matter as well too. And I just have to say thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me today. So it has just been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, it's been a blast. I love hanging out with you.
All right, take care.